Green.
It looks yellow. Is it like lime green?
It's fluorescent yellow.
Thank you, Andrea.
Hello, Kathy.
Hi. Rabbi, I think I saw you in front of the cemetery. You're muted, but I thought I saw you there. Yeah.
He was doing a funeral there.
It's a funeral.
Oh, yes.
Phyllis Katz's? Was it Phyllis Katz's?
Yeah, Phyllis
Yes,
Cass's.
yes. Unfortunately, it was Phyllis's, and I actually was there mostly, to pay my respects. And Alan Levitt, our co-president's son Noah, is a wonderful rabbi in Cleveland, and it's a very, very wonderful, tight-knit family. And so he drove all the way from Cleveland in one day, which is a long drive to the city. It's even longer to get out here, and he was able to officiate, which is. It was obviously very powerful, very, very sad, but it's a remarkable family. And for those that don't know, this is the Katz family, which is one of our longest standing families here at the temple. And it was certainly tough, but I would say that the family has had a lot of also simcha in the last year and two in particular. And, it's they have a remarkable matriarch they had certainly in Don Zichrono Livracha, but Gert, who really, leads the family and is really a remarkable person. So, generally speaking, if you're driving down 114 and you see me in that area, it's usually not good news, as they say. But in any case, on happier notes, it's wonderful to see all of you. It's wonderful to celebrate Shabbat, and especially to have a wonderful partner to do that with in Cantor Lauren. So I'm going to just mute everybody. And again, forgive me for that. And we'll see you guys, or be able to speak to you guys at the end of the service. So we're all set there. Cantor Lauren, you're, I think, free here. And we're going to begin by turning in our prayer books to page 120 as we light and bless our Shabbat candles. So for anyone that has candles at home that would love to have you join me, you're more than welcome to do so. Again, page 120. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. And now we're going to turn it back over to Cantor Lauren for our opening song tonight, which we just realized was picked unintentionally, but happens to be composed or put together by a wonderful family friend of ours, Rabbi Moshe Shore, who someday I would love to be able to bring out for a concert or something. He's great. So Cantor Lauren, why don't you start us off?
Na 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 na
turn now to page 130 as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat together, the very top of the page. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. Naria, Naria, letzhori shenu, nekadma fana betodaham. Naria, Naria, letzhori shenu, mizmirot Naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. We'll turn now to page 131 and back to Cantor Lauren, Shiru Ladonai.
Shiru Ladonai,
We'll turn now to page 132, Or Zarua, the last paragraph in Hebrew at the bottom of the page. Or Zarua la tzadik, uleishrei lev simecha. 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 We turn back to Cantor Lauren as we turn also to page 134.
Zamru Ladonai bechinor vekozimra. Zamru Ladonai bechinor vekozimra.
Turn now to page 135, Romamu, the last paragraph in Hebrew in the middle of the page. we'll turn now to page 138 for Lecha Dodi, and a reminder, we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad ishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shem u'tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor haberacha meherosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri kiva orech kumi uri shir daberi kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Bohi v'shalom ateret balav gam b'simecha u'v'tzolam toch emunei am sekulam. Boi chala Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. We'll turn it back to Cantor Lauren as we turn to page 140, Tzadik Katamar in the Hebrew, just where it indents in the middle of the page.
Tzadik Katamar yifrach ke'erez balvanon yeizkeh shetulim beveit Adonai mechatrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenun beseifa deshenim berananim yehiu Lehagir yashar Adonai tzuri meloav latapo.
We'll turn now to page 144 for the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah וילמד יברכיותי וימליך מלכותי, מחייכון וביומכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עלמי יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשא בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירה מעלמה ויאמרו אמן.
We'll turn now to page 146 for the Baruch.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Vaed, Le'olam Vaed. Dai 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 dai
And we'll turn now to page 148. We'll read together in English at the bottom of the page, the first blessing before the Shema. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב הרבים. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אתה. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכנו וקומנו, נשיח בכוחך, ונשמח מדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה. מאהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני
Now on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Turn now to page 157. We'll read together in English at the top of the page. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it's eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn back to Cantor Lauren and turn to page 158, very top of the page. We'll turn now to page 161, very top of the page, Ashkibenu. now to page 162, Vishamru, at the very top of the page. Veshamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם, עיני בהנים ובהן בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת שבת ויהי נפש. In a moment, we'll begin our silent Amidah, and we'll ask Cantor Lauren to help us get started on page 164. And as always, to continue silently, please go at your own pace. When you're finished, you can either remain seated, or if you're standing, to be seated. Be wherever you are most comfortable. Make the most of this time for yourself, however most meaningful. But again, we'll begin all together on page 164 and then continue silently.
Adonai Sabatay Tiftach Ufi Hagit Hilatecha Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Now turn to page 371 for our Misha Berach, our prayer for healing. And as I read the list in a moment of those in our community and connected to our community that we know who are in need of healing, I invite those who would like to share names to please include those in the chat or simply to hold them in your heart as we offer this prayer. But as I said, we'll begin by thinking of those in our community and connected to our community in need of healing. Stu Pollock, Mordechai Yaakov, Ben Malka Rivka, Jane London, Phyllis Silver, Catherine Guarino, Emunah Chava, Sandra Furman, Morty Lynn, Raina Walsh, Deirdre Klein, Stephanie Skitt, Nancy DeMate, Jean Ben Sadoun, Gloria Tardash, Judy Stern, Miriam Cornfield, Raz Brody, Chana Ruth Bat Sarah, Louis Davidson, Fagel Tzipora Bat Elisheva Bat Sarah, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Tzvi Menachem Ben Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Janice Kurz, David Dowling, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Ben Sion Ben Moshe, Lorraine Danis, Buddy Kassoff, Shelley Newmark, David Kyle Klopman, Rivka Bat Rachel, Sarah Bat Chana, Moshe Eliezer Ben Sivia, Peretz Ben Yehuda, and Leah Bat Naomi. And as we think of all of them and those that we mentioned in the chat, we'll turn to Cantor Lauren as we offer the Misha Berach on page 371. Thank you, Cantor. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm sure some of you, if not most of you, heard that fortunately last Shabbat, we didn't get the news until after Shabbat had ended, that one of the Gedolei Hador, as they say in Hebrew, the greats of a generation, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, passed away in England. And, as those of you that have heard me teach and study, I am oft quoting Rabbi Sachs, as are many rabbis across many denominations, across many places in the world, and not by accident. As I said before, when you refer to somebody as a Gedolei Hador in Hebrew, it's one of the highest conceivable things that one can say, especially of a rabbi, that they made an impact that was so large that it was felt by an entire generation. And in truth, actually, many generations. This tends to be the case, that just as we study Rashi to this day and Maimonides to this day, even though they wrote, hundreds of years ago, almost a millennia ago, that I suspect that Rabbi Sachs's teachings will continue to be taught for many generations to come. And I wanted to share something of a teaching that struck me a number of years ago that I think, should be fairly obvious, will speak very much to this moment as well. And this was part of his response when he was given and awarded what's called the Templeton Prize in England, which I wasn't actually all that familiar with. I actually distinctly remember David Wesley coming up and telling me that this was sort of secret news that hadn't been released yet, but that he was getting this award. This is a very big deal, especially in England. It's one of the most significant prizes that's been awarded for the last 40 or 50 years there. Began in 1972. And the idea of it was actually to award those who were working specifically in the field of religion, but as time went by, it sort of morphed. And I think in 2008, they changed the name, or they adapted the name, that it's the Templeton Prize for Progress Towards Research and Discoveries About Spiritual Realities. So if you can understand when Rabbi Sachs got this award, it was a very significant moment for him. And just as point of reference, the first award was given to Mother Teresa. So when we're talking about significant people, Rabbi Sacks is in this pantheon. And certainly it had a very profound impact on him. It really meant quite a great deal to him and his standing certainly in the UK. But his teaching that night was fascinating. And I thought about it years ago when I first heard it, and it sort of reoccurred to me as I was trying to think of something to share of his this evening. So it's a little bit on the longer side, but I do want to read it, and it's not in its entirety. I really advise you to go and listen to the speech as he received the award, but I'll try to coalesce it around at least the core idea that I think was so significant. So he began by talking about and identifying something that he referred to as a phenomenon, and one that in particular has been shaping the western part of the world, especially in recent years. And as he points out, he says, leading it at first to greatness, but now to crisis. And it can be summed up in one word, and this might be surprising to you as it was to me: outsourcing. Outsourcing. Wouldn't expect a rabbi of renown to be talking about a word like outsourcing, but he will explain in a second what he means. And he certainly explains its origins in an economic theory and how that ultimately has resulted in a number of economic impacts. But then he shifts more into his place, right, in the place where he understands. And he says that there's one form of outsourcing that tends to be little noticed: the outsourcing of memory. Our computers, he writes, and smartphones have developed larger and larger memories, from kilobytes to megabytes to gigabytes. And while our memories and those of our children have gotten smaller and smaller. In fact, he asks the rhetorical question, why bother to remember anything at all these days if you can just look it up in a microsecond on Google or Wikipedia? But here, he continues, I think we made a mistake. We confused history and memory, which are not the same thing at all. History is an answer to the question, what happened? Memory is an answer to the question, who am I? History is about facts. Memory is about identity. History is his story. It happened to someone else, not me. Memory is my story, the past that made me who I am, of whose legacy I am the guardian for the sake of generations yet to come. Without memory, there is no identity. And without identity, we are mere dust on the surface of infinity. And he continues this thought and he explores it in greater detail. As I said, you should go read it in its entirety. But then he gets to a second source of concern for him, another place in which we have, so to speak, outsourced something that really should be insourced, I suppose, is the opposite. And he says that is morality. Morality, he says, and he explains, has been split in two and outsourced to other institutions. There are moral choices, and there are consequences of our moral choices. Morality itself has been outsourced to the market. The market gives us choices, and morality itself is just a set of choices in which right or wrong have no meaning beyond the satisfaction or frustration or desire. The result is that we find it increasingly hard to understand why there might be things that we want to do, can afford to do, and have a legal right to do, that nonetheless we should not do because they are unjust or dishonorable or disloyal or demeaning. In a word, unethical. Ethics, he argues, has been reduced to economics. There is, however, an alternative, and this is one of the key characteristics of Sacks, which I'll talk about more in a second. There is an alternative: to become inner-directed again. This means recovering the moral dimension that links our welfare to the welfare of others, making us collectively responsible for the common good. It means recovering the spiritual dimension that helps us to tell the difference between the value of things and their price. We are more than consumers and voters. Our dignity transcends what we earn and own. It means remembering that what's important is not just satisfying our desires, but also knowing which desires to satisfy. It means restraining ourselves in the present so that our children may have a viable future. It means reclaiming collective memory and identity so that society becomes less of a hotel and more of a home. In short, it means learning that there are some things we cannot or should not outsource, some responsibilities we cannot or should not delegate away. And of course, one of Saxe's greatest skills was that he was a brilliant orator, a brilliant writer. He understood alliteration. He understood how to make an idea compelling. But his ideas are really what mattered the most. And there's a sort of oft-quoted joke that all rabbis basically give one sermon. In essence, Saxe's sermon was to be a mensch, right? His one sermon continuously over and over and over and over and over again was to come back to these core ideas of Judaism's ethics and morals and values, and drawing connections between maybe what are unique to our people and our history and our memory, and seeing the parallels in other communities, other faiths, other traditions. He was remarkable in his ability to bring people together of various backgrounds. Even within Judaism, he was remarkable in the sense that he's one of the very few rabbis of a contemporary nature who is quoted in Orthodox, conservative, Reform, Reconstructionist, Renewal, secular, otherwise, quite frankly, you'll find him on TED Talks. He's quoted in so many different places, and yet his Judaism was really at his core. And one of the things that I just want to highlight at the end of it, and you should go if you have time, all of the hespedim, the eulogies that were given for him, especially right now, there couldn't be a big funeral. There really were only a handful of people, but they recorded them and they put them online, which you can watch. But I think the most meaningful one to me was the one that was delivered by his youngest daughter, Gila. And one of the things that she talked about, one of the great lessons that she imparted to her and to her siblings, and really I think to all of us, is that a lot of times we feel like the world is basically struggling from inertia, that there are problems that are simply intractable, they can't be changed, that the current reality is a definite sign that things will be the same generation after generation, year after year, that when we run into really tough situations, that there really is nothing to do but throw our hands up. And what Sachs taught them, and ultimately I think taught us through various ways, was that's nonsense. That there is no concept that can't be changed. There is no behavior that cannot be made better. That there is no moment in which we really have completely outsourced our values, our ethics, our decision making, our memory. That all of these things can be recaptured, all of these things can be recalibrated. And ultimately speaking, it's in our hands. And that, I think, was so much of his teaching, was to remind us, regardless again of background or even our Jewish practice, right, to remind us to consider these core ideas of the fundamental values and ethics and morals that make us God's creation, right? Make us a shared humanity. He had every reason to focus only on Judaism, on Jewish people, on Jewish communities, and yet he dedicated himself so much so that he was traveling pretty much all the time. He gave up time with his own family, his own pursuits, in order to try to build those kinds of bridges to other communities and to build bridges, as I said, within the Jewish community. It doesn't mean that he was a perfect person. Nobody is. But ultimately speaking, he was one of the great teachers, certainly of our generation. And as I said, I hope and I pray that his teachings, his memory, all of the things that he gifted us in so many different ways will continue to be a source of blessing, a source of learning, a source of wisdom for us, for our children, and for future generations. And that we shouldn't lose sight of really his charge in what he said all those years ago in 2016, that seems to mean even more today, which is to say that part of what we are struggling with right now is our lack of ability to take responsibility for behavior and to hold each other accountable for our behavior. And I think that he gives us a path tonight, and one that I hope has moved you in the same way that it has mine. And to simply say, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory continue to be a blessing for all of us, for the Jewish people certainly, but for really the entire world. So with that, I wish you something of a heavy-hearted Shabbat Shalom. And again, as I said, anything that you want, especially of his, is all out there. It is all online. He gave everything away, basically. All of his works are basically accessible at any time. So if you haven't studied him before, make some time this Shabbat and maybe study something of his that he wrote, maybe about this week's Parsha or something else. So with that, I will wish everyone again a Shabbat Shalom, and we'll turn now to page 586 at the bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabeach. Aleinu L'Shabeach Ladon HaKol Latet Gedula Liotzer Breshit Shelo Asanu Kigoye Haratzot Velo Sabanu Kemishbechot Adama Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Now invite those in mourning, those observing yahrzeit who choose to do so, to rise at home, and we will mark first and remember those who have died and passed in recent months. Miles Ambrose, Nancy Fisher, Saul Fisher, Edwin Friedman, Sandra Friedman, Lucy Gladstone, Lois Herr, Philip Idone, Phyllis Katz, Laura Kurz, Madge Judith Parcher, Steve Popkin, Vera Shaps, Lisa Schneidman, Norma Small, Marjorie Weinberg Berman, Marvin Weiss, and Joanna Lee. We also mark the yahrzeit that occurred during the last week for Bob Auerbach, Sadie Bennett, Marion Bloom, Marshall Butler, Erwin Daniels, Jules Danto, Deborah de Rothschild, Hannah Elias, Florence Feinstein, Leonard Fichtelberg, Carol Goldblatt, Gladys Goodstone, Esther Greenberg, Milton Gross, Fanny Halpern, Morris Kelman, Dora Koffler, Evelyn Lauder, Rose Lefkowitz, Sylvia Lieberman, Rollin Graham Mason, Mary Neff, Louis Rossick, Katie Rubendorf, Victor Siegel, Bertha Zuckerman, Hy Weinberg, Irving Weller, Claire York, and Hannah Zuckerman. And if you're remembering anyone this evening who we did not mention, you're more than welcome to mention their names in the chat or simply to hold their memories in your hearts as we turn to page 598 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah. Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Shabbat shalom, everyone. I'll go to the gallery so I can actually see all your faces. So a few important announcements to share. First will be, of course, to join us for our Oneg Shabbat, which now, as we started last week, it seemed to work well. We'll just stay on the call. We won't go anywhere. Anybody wants to stick around, we'll kibitz for a little bit. We'd love to have you. Also, to remind everyone that services begin tomorrow at 10 o'clock, live streamed on our website, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And of course, our weekly Torah study, which begins at noon, which is welcoming to all backgrounds, all Jewish knowledge bases, whatever it is, come and join us. It's a great opportunity to learn. Also, a reminder that tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, we're very excited. We're bringing Keelan out. He's going to come to the sanctuary. We're going to do a socially distant Havdalah and Keelan concert so we can really hear him sing. And hopefully he won't blow out the system because I think he's very excited about it. And again, we really hope that you can join us. That's going to be, in order to get the best quality of the sound and everything, it's going to be live streamed on our website, again, on Facebook or on YouTube. And I'm trying to think about some way to make it a little more interactive over Zoom. Look, just keep an eye out for an email possibly from me tomorrow afternoon. I thought about it sort of at the last minute. It'd be nice to still be able to communicate. So I'm trying to figure out how to do all this. Just trust me, I'll figure it out. Just, that's all I can say. Just trust me, I will figure it out one way or the other. Also a reminder this week, Hebrew School will be in session on Zoom at 4 o'clock, and our Social Justice Committee will have its regular virtual meeting at 5 o'clock. My class on Abraham, Joshua, Heschel, and the Prophets will be meeting on Wednesday at 12, and B'nai Mitzvah will be meeting on Zoom on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Later that evening, that is at 7 o'clock, we are showing the film on the life of the renowned Mexican artist Frida Kahlo. This will include also an interview with the project's executive producer and director, and will feature our cultural programs chair, Toby Spitz, who will be interviewing. Again, that is 7 o'clock. Hopefully all of you have already gotten your links and all those kinds of things. If you have any problems, contact Toby directly. If you have any problems reaching Toby, please do let me know. Friday, 9 o'clock, my class on Pirkei Avot, again, open to all. And next Shabbat services is part of Jewish Book Month, as we've tried to do over the last few years. And I don't think Cheryl Gold is on the call tonight, but Cheryl is our main driving force for acknowledging Jewish Book Month. And of course, Ruth Joseph, who runs our book group. But so what we've tried to do is hold one of the Friday night services and to build a sermon or a teaching around a particular book. So this year, I'm going to share with you my reflections on Touched with Fire, Morris B. Abram and the Battle Against Racial and Religious Discrimination, which was an award winner for last year. So we'll join for that. And just a reminder again of our regular Interfaith Thanksgiving service this year, all on Zoom. That will be Sunday, November 22nd. And last is on Sunday, November 29th, the book group with Ruth will be meeting as well. If you have questions and would like to join, please contact Ruth directly or contact the office for more information. Okay, I think I've done all of my announcements that I can think of. We're going to turn it back to Cantor Lauren to give us a closing song as I get our Kiddush cup ready. So Cantor Lauren, take it away. Okay, we're going to turn now to page 123 for Kiddush. You're more than welcome to join me if you have some wine or grape juice handy. Again, page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki banu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim, everyone. Shabbat shalom. Okay, I think you're free to unmute now if you'd like. Wish each other.
Yay.
There we go. Okay. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom,
Okay,
everyone.